To be born is not a miracle, it's a condemnation. Being born is not a miracle, it's a condemnation. For Emil Cioran, existence itself is an irreversible mistake that marks the beginning of all suffering. In this video, we'll explore his darkest and most unsettling thoughts. Stay until the end to understand why, according to him, living should never have been an option. Being born was a mistake. That's how Emil Cioran saw it. Not as a metaphor or a rhetorical provocation, but as a brutal fact. The act of coming into the world is not a blessing or an opportunity. It's an imposition without consent, a silent tragedy that inaugurates all forms of suffering. From his radical perspective, human consciousness is not a gift, but a persistent curse. Being alive is the price we pay for having been brought into the world without asking for it. Cioran never sugarcoated his ideas. He didn't offer comfort. He didn't seek to ease anguish. He exposed it, flayed it, displayed it as the rawest core of existence. He said that if people could remember what it was like not to be born, everyone would reject life. But no one remembers because birth robs us of the only true form of freedom, non-existence. His hatred for having been born was so visceral that he considered procreation a crime. Not out of extravagance, but because he understood that giving life meant condemning another being to suffer. Instead of bringing light, we impose the burden of time, desire, illness, and loss. And most devastating of all, the weight of consciousness. For Cioran, the human being suffers more than any other creature for one reason only: awareness. An animal feels pain. A plant decays. But the human being, having consciousness, amplifies every discomfort, remembers it, anticipates it, turns it into identity. That lucidity, that intelligent pain, as he called it, transforms life into an unbearable experience. He didn't admire productivity or effort. He didn't believe in progress or personal growth. He despised the modern ideals of success, motivation, and purpose. His only aspiration was to disappear quietly, to undo himself without drama. But even that seemed too much. For him, suicide always came too late, when the damage was already done, when we'd already been condemned to exist. He lived as he thought. He renounced honors, mocked awards, rejected prestige. He lived austerely, avoided work, didn't chase fame or validation. He preferred the company of others who, like him, had stopped believing in redemption. Not out of depression, but out of clarity. He knew that the more one expects from life, the more painful its response. Cioran found one way to stay alive: writing. He called his books postponed suicides. Each page was a way of resisting without lying to himself. He didn't seek solutions or peace, only to express the exhaustion of existing in a world where the most sensible thing, the most just thing, would have been never to be born. Consciousness, for Cioran, was an open wound that never heals, a knife lodged in the flesh of thought, one that doesn't kill, but doesn't allow peace either. There's no rest for the lucid. That clarity, far from offering answers, tears apart every illusion of meaning. While others celebrated life as a miracle, he exposed it as a trap. What was unbearable wasn't death. It was having begun to live. Every birth, he said, renews the pact with suffering. Procreation isn't hope, it's a repeated sentence. That's why he never wanted to be a father. He refused to commit that act of cruelty that most people disguise as love. Having a child, in his words, was pushing another being into the horror of consciousness, the fear of existence, the certainty that everything will end in decay and oblivion. His vision wasn't nihilistic in the common sense of the word. He didn't preach destruction, apathy, or abandonment. His radicalism was more honest, cleaner. He didn't want to rebuild the world or change its structures. He didn't want to belong to anything. He preferred to lose, to fail, to vanish. Not out of contempt for others, but out of fidelity to his own lucidity. He refused to belong to the system of builders and believers, because he knew that everything that rises must fall, and the higher you climb, the harder the fall. The culture of productivity and utility disgusted him. He believed that a truly lucid life could not be oriented toward efficiency. That's why he lived as a self-confessed parasite. He claimed to have a passion for being unproductive. His life was a constant renunciation of glory, work, and prestige. He sought to free himself from everything that tied him to the machinery of the modern world. And yet, he wrote. He wrote as one bleeds. His books were a way to stay standing, not out of hope, but out of necessity. He didn't believe his ideas could save anyone. He didn't want to convince. He just needed to say it, to name the unnameable, to vomit anguish without ornament. Each aphorism was a trench against the farce of enthusiasm, a strike against the dictatorship of optimism. He didn't hide. He had no hope. He had truth, even when it hurt. Even among the darkest thinkers, Cioran was unique. He didn't offer formulas, spiritual paths, or systems of thought. He was a foreigner of the soul, someone who chose to walk the edge, asking for no comfort, begging for no consecration. He knew that what's unbearable isn't dying, but living with the awareness that being born was a catastrophe, and that there's no escape, only endurance. Cioran didn't write to heal. He wrote not to drown. His writing wasn't therapy. It was survival. He didn't aim to enlighten, only to endure the suffocation of existence. His rejection of life wasn't cynicism. It was bone-deep conviction, the awareness of birth's original failure. And yet there he was, breathing, eating, writing, coexisting with the contradiction without trying to solve it. He didn't believe in redemption, but he believed in lucidity, a bitter, unadorned lucidity that promises nothing. Because for Cioran, the worst part isn't suffering. It's knowing there's no reason to suffer. Pain has no meaning, no function, no reward. It's pure, blind, inevitable. And worst of all, it's inherited. We pass it on. We prolong it. We reproduce it. That's why he saw motherhood and fatherhood as deeply irresponsible acts, wrapped in a collective lie disguised as love. He didn't seek comfort in religion. Faith, for him, was an escape from the raw truth, that there's no plan, no justice, no purpose. The universe has no intention. Life has no destination. There are only bodies, born, suffering, dying. Everything else, he said, are decorations meant to make the sentence more bearable. And yet, he didn't choose suicide. He thought about it, even contemplated it, but never acted. He said that by the time one decides to do it, it's already too late. You've already suffered the worst. There's no point adding more violence. His existence was a refusal to end and, at the same time, an exploration of discomfort as a way of being. He remained standing, not out of hope, but out of lucid resignation. He didn't live among brilliant intellectuals or public figures. He surrounded himself with failures, outcasts, those who didn't fit any grand narrative. Not because he admired defeat, but because he found honesty there. While the world celebrated ambition, he sought anonymity. While society worshipped success, he celebrated insignificance. Because in insignificance there's no expectation, and without expectation, there's no disappointment. For Cioran, suffering wasn't something to be fought, but something to be accepted, not as duty, but as fact. What's unbearable is resisting what is. That's why his way of facing pain wasn't spiritual, philosophical, or political. It was visceral. It was a conscious surrender to fatality. He knew he couldn't escape it. So he decided to inhabit the wound, to live inside it, to write from it. Life, he said, cannot be fixed, because its flaw lies at the origin. What hurts isn't what happens. It's that anything began to happen at all. Birth was the crack. Everything else is consequence. Being born is not a miracle. It's a condemnation. For Emil Cioran, existence is an irreversible mistake that marks the beginning of all suffering. In this video, we explore his most unsettling thoughts. Stay until the end to understand why, for him, living should never have been an option.